Bueno, en esta ocasión tenemos a Lauren Cullen. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining. And we have Dr. Patrick Carolan from the psychology department at St. Mary's University. So we will have a presentation first under general information about the university, and then we will leave the floor to Dr. Carolan, and he will talk about a very interesting topic here, psychology in the real world. So thank you very much for all this information. I will leave you the floor if you want to share your screen now, Lauren.
Okay, thank you so much. It's great to be back here. Nice to see you again.
To see you too.
A todos. Okay, I will just share my screen here. Okay, I think you should be able to see this.
The PowerPoint file, yes, if you want to, perfect. That's the full screen now.
Muy bien, gracias.
Thank you, Lauren, and welcome, Dr. Carolan. Welcome to you too, and thank you very much.
Okay, well, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. It's so nice to be here for the Team Up for Education event. My name is Lauren Cullen, and I work in the International Recruitment and Admissions Office here at St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Joined by a very special guest today, Dr. Patrick Carolan, who is also on the line, who will be speaking to you more about psychology at St. Mary's University and in the real world. So I will take the first few minutes of the presentation to give you a short introduction to St. Mary's University and our beautiful location on the east coast of Canada before I pass it over to Dr. Carolan, who will get started on the interesting topic lecture of the day. So St. Mary's University is located in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So we are on the very east coast of Canada, a beautiful seaside city. Halifax is my hometown, so I'm certainly very passionate about the city and about St. Mary's University and all of the amazing opportunities for international students. Halifax is the largest city in Atlantic Canada, so east of Quebec, east of Montreal, in fact. And we are home to approximately 450,000 people. So it's a great sized city. We're known for being an education capital of Canada. St. Mary's University is one of 6 universities in the city of Halifax. And as you can see on your screen, there should be a little maroon bubble that popped up in the top right corner that shows exactly where St. Mary's University is located in the city. So Halifax is known for being relatively safe and friendly and walkable and overall a really great place to be a student. This is St. Mary's University. So we are the 3rd oldest university in Canada, founded in 1802. Today we are home to approximately 7,000 students. So in Canada, we are considered a small to mid-sized university. There's a few things that really make us unique. One is the small class sizes and personalized attention that you will get from professors. I can speak from my own experience. I graduated from St. Mary's in 2006, and I knew my professors, they knew my first name, and so there was no hesitation to knock on their office door or send an email or raise my hand to ask a question in class. We are known for that kind of personalized environment. St. Mary's is also known for being a very diverse campus. In fact, 1/3 of our students are international students from 112 different countries, including Mexico. We have cooperative education available in almost all of our majors. So not only can you get an international education experience here at St. Mary's University, you are also able to, if you so choose, opt into a co-op program where you can pursue 3 paid internships that relate to your studies. If you look closely at this picture of campus, you will notice that we are all located within one city block. So we like to say we have the whole world in this one city block, and almost all of our buildings are interconnected as well. So St. Mary's is known for its interconnected community and very tight-knit campus. So strong sense of community, small class sizes where you will get to know professors, and really globalized community with students from 112 different countries. Our focus at St. Mary's University is on undergraduate studies. So for many of you logged in this morning who are in high school, our focus is on the first degree program that you will pursue after high school, should you choose the university route. We are home to a Bachelor of Arts program where you can see so many different areas of study in the humanities and social sciences. We are home to a Faculty of Science as well. We are home to the Sobey School of Business, where you can pursue a Bachelor of Commerce degree with these different majors here. We have a very exciting School of the Environment, and we are also home to an engineering program as well. So before we end today, I will leave you my email address in case you have any follow-up questions. But I would like to hand the virtual microphone now over to my colleague, Dr. Patrick Carolan, who is a lecturer in the psychology department here at St. Mary's University, who has an exciting mock lecture planned for you this morning. So Dr. Carolan, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Hi, and thanks to everyone who's on the line today. So for my little talk here, I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk to you about what psychology looks like at St. Mary's University. But before I do that, I actually want to take a little bit of time to also talk about why you might be interested in studying psychology in the first place. So I guess we'll just kind of jump on in. If you were following the COVID-19 pandemic before it really sort of exploded in North America, particularly in January and February of 2020, you may have heard some pretty scary estimates about how many millions of people were expected to be killed worldwide if we didn't take action. So typically in the face of this type of potential catastrophe, lots of World Health Organizations, such as the Center for Disease Control in the United States or the World Health Organization, they'll go and they'll publish these worst case scenario estimates. So projections of what will happen if the absolute worst possible outcome occurs, because this is generally found to be the best way to motivate people in order to take action. Of course, this requires our leaders to actually amplify the advice of these scientists, which many in this case failed to do or even actively worked against. And now, of course, we find ourselves in this desperate fight to get out of this disaster. But it's worth remembering that this tactic has actually worked quite well in lots of other scenarios in the past. So for example, in 2014, there was actually a pretty substantial Ebola outbreak in West Africa. And at that time, to encourage people to take action, public health scientists created models that demonstrated just how quickly this virus could spread and how devastating it would be. And this compelled world leaders, including lots of leaders in the United States, to send aid, and the epidemic was ultimately contained. So in general, this approach of using this kind of worst case scenario modeling does tend to be effective. And psychology is a discipline that can answer why this actually is the case, because psychology is about studying mental phenomena that underlie all sorts of human behaviors. So we're in the business of trying to explain why it is people do what they do. So to try and figure out why this worst case scenario modeling tends to work, we're going to look at some really classic research on decision making that can sort of explain what's going on. To explain why this messaging tends to work, one thing that you need to understand is that the way that we make our choices is really dramatically impacted by how those choices or those questions are presented to us or how they're framed. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to use an example that's a little bit more pleasant. I'd like you to consider these two following scenarios that both involve you receiving some money. So in scenario one, on the left-hand side of the screen, what I'm going to get you to do is imagine that I'd like to give you some money. So I'm just going to give you some money and you have two options. So option A is you have a 100% chance that I'm about to give you $5 Canadian, works out to about 80 pesos. Option B is that you've got a 25% chance that I'm going to give you 4 times as much money. So a 25% chance that I'm going to give you $20 Canadian, but there's also a 75% chance that you're going to get nothing. Now, when we present someone with this scenario, generally what we find is that most people, about 70% of people, will take option A. So you like that guarantee of receiving money. Like, you're going to get some money here. Why would you pass up that opportunity? So that's a pretty common sort of finding. Now, in scenario number 2, what I'd like you to do is imagine that rather than kind of giving you this choice about how much money I'm going to give you, I'm just going to give you $20 Canadian right off the bat. So you're now standing there, you're holding this money, and then after I've given you that money, I'm going to tell you that you have 2 options. So option A in scenario number 2 is that you're actually going to lose 15 of the dollars that I just gave you. So I'm going to reach out and I'm going to grab that money back from you. Now, most people don't really like the sound of that. You just got that money. You don't want to give it up. So I'm going to present you with option B. Option B is that you have a 25% chance that I'm not going to take any money from you. So I'm just going to leave you with that $20 that you're holding. But there's also a 75% chance that I'm going to take everything away from you. So you've got this chance of losing everything, but you've got a decent chance of keeping that money that you just received. So in scenario number 2, when I present you with these 2 options, what we find is that most people will take option B. So they're willing to risk losing everything in order to have this chance of keeping everything as well. So we get these very predictable sort of responses when we ask large groups of people how they're going to choose in these 2 scenarios. But if you take a second to look at the actual math going on in these 2 decisions, what you end up noticing is that you actually have basically the exact same chance of ending up with $5 in option A, regardless of which scenario we've put you in, and the same chance of ending up with $20 in option B, regardless of which scenario we've placed you in. So if I give you $5, that's exactly the same thing as giving you $20 and then taking away 15, because at the end of the day, you're left with $5. But somehow that option A still feels really icky. It's just very unpleasant or aversive when we frame it in terms of losing that money that you've already gained. And option B, even though it feels really risky, really scary in scenario number 1, where we could have this guaranteed win, we're willing to take risks in order to avoid losing this money. So ultimately, what this scenario shows us is that the way that we phrase a choice will really impact what sort of decision a person makes and essentially how much risk they're willing to tolerate. So we'll keep on moving to the next slide. So what we refer to this as is essentially risk tolerance or risk aversion. And this is just one way that we can demonstrate in psychology that humans are actually really bad at cost-benefit analyses when it comes to making decisions. So we can often fall into all sorts of pitfalls or traps. Now, in the previous example, there was no right option. That's just like a personal choice, how you're going to take that sort of money situation. But we can manipulate people's decisions in how we frame those questions. So if we phrase something in terms of a possible gain, we generally find that people are very unlikely to take risks. So when something is related to a gain, people tend to be risk averse. Now, in contrast, if we phrase something as a loss, people tend to be much more willing to seek risks. So people are willing to take big risks in order to avoid losing something. So their overall, their tolerance for risk will go way up if it involves avoiding a loss. Now, to bring this all back to the global pandemic, which is how I kind of started talking about this topic, we see this effective risk tolerance when it comes to decisions about how we're going to acquire money or spend money. But the original study that was done to examine risk tolerance, it was conducted in the 1980s, and it was actually set up in terms of people's decision about how to tackle a hypothetical pandemic. So researchers proposed this scenario where there was a potential disease that could kill a lot of people, and you have to choose which of 2 options you thought that the government should take to try and avoid these outcomes. Now, what the researchers found was when they phrased something in terms of preventing deaths, so if they phrased it basically in terms of avoiding losses, people were willing to choose a very risky option in order to prevent those deaths. However, if we phrase things in terms of saving lives, people were much less likely to act or much less likely to take a big risk. So based on this, what we know is that the best way to motivate people to really bold action is to focus on sort of open and honest estimates of how many people could potentially be harmed or even killed in this scenario. So this is an example of how we can use psychology in sort of a real world scenario on a global scale, but we can also apply this knowledge to our own lives. So now that you know about risk aversion, the next time that you're making a big, important life decision, you might take some of this into account. So let's say you're pondering something really big, you're pondering something like taking on a new job, maybe you're pondering a breakup, maybe you're thinking about trying out a new restaurant, or maybe you're thinking about moving to Canada and going to university. With this type of really big decision, the next time you're making one, if you find yourself thinking about it and you think about it as an opportunity for something, what you want to stop and say is, am I overestimating the risks here? Am I maybe being a little too cautious? Because we know if you think of this as an opportunity to gain something, you're going to be quite risk averse. Now, if in contrast, you're actually sort of doing this because you're fearing missing out on something, or as we used to say when I was in my 20s, you're experiencing some FOMO, fear of missing out, then you should maybe ask yourself, all right, am I acting a little bit rashly here? Am I maybe not being cautious enough? Am I being too risky? Because generally we're going to be risky if it involves avoiding some type of loss. All right, now to sort of wrap up my little mini lecture here, I'm going to end off with a test question. So try and answer this yourself. I'll give you half a second after I've read it out for you to try and come up with an answer. So true or false, when a decision is framed in terms of possible losses, people tend to be risk averse. And when a decision is framed in terms of possible gains, people tend to be risk seeking. So I'll give you a second, try and answer it. And I'm sure you got it right. This is false. So people tend to be risk-seeking in order to avoid losses, and they tend to like sure gains. So if we've got an opportunity to gain something, we don't really want to take any risks. All right, so now that I've gotten you all fired up about psychology and how we can use it to save the world or potentially manipulate people in order to achieve evil or nefarious ends, I'll just take a few minutes to talk to you about why you might want to study psychology at St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So our program actually has options for both a Bachelor of Science degree or a Bachelor of Arts degree. Ultimately, the coursework that you would take in psychology is going to look pretty similar, but you're able to sort of gear your degree to one of those two options, depending on what other oh, awesome. I see some people responding false in the chat. I just noticed that now. Fantastic. So you're actually able to sort of tailor your psychology degree to fit your other interests or what other major or minor you might want to specify in. Now we have courses in many areas such as cognitive and social psychology. So that's my specialty. And that sort of relates to this risk aversion research that I just talked about. Additionally, we have specialized courses and programs in forensic psychology. So that's applications of psychology to legal settings, as well as workplace psychology, also known as industrial organizational psychology. That's a type of psychology you can actually make a fair bit of money in by consulting with different organizations or governments on how they can sort of improve their workplaces. We, of course, have the co-op program. We also have an honors program. So this is an opportunity in your last few years of your degree to do research and gain writing experience in order to help prepare you for applications in further education. So if you're applying to something like grad school or law school, we have an option to complete a certificate in human resources management if you wanted to gear towards that. And we have a very large faculty with 22 full-time instructors, including myself, as well as a number of part-time instructors. Many of our instructors are either leading researchers in their fields or they work in private practice and community settings. And so they have great connections to sort of actual workplaces and the real world. Now, to wrap this up, you might be saying, okay, let's say I do this degree in psychology. What can I then do with that psychology degree? Well, there's a lot of different options. So for many students, a psychology undergrad is just the first of many steps down an educational pathway. So if you're thinking about doing graduate school or going on to law school or counseling, psychology is a great option as sort of your first degree on this path. However, lots of our bachelor student alumni, as well as our co-op students, will work in research and outreach positions within government, industry, as well as not-for-profit organizations. We also have lots of students will go on and work in sort of support roles in clinical psychology settings, so working as technicians or administrative assistants. And then we, of course, also have lots of students who go on to do human resources and sort of personnel stuff within a variety of different organizations. So that is everything for me. So I think we're going to open it up for a quick Q&A if you have any questions about St. Mary's.
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Caroline. I always love sitting in for mini lectures like this because they're so interesting and exciting. And I think it demonstrates one example of the many things you can study, you can pursue in a bachelor's degree. And I think this is something that St. Mary's University does very well, has that interdisciplinary approach to learning. So if you are a student pursuing a major in psychology, you may also take classes in sociology and biology or management, and you have the ability to look at many different issues from different perspectives. So thank you so much. So I see the Team Up team has joined us, and I believe there are some questions that have come in. So we would be more than happy to answer those if there are any questions.
Yes, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Professor Lauren, thank you very much. It was pretty interesting. We actually got some answers to the question that was in question. And we got 2 falses, so maybe they were a little bit right. They pretty understand what the professor was actually meant to say to us. And we have just a couple of questions. The first one, if Lauren, if you could please share with us your contact information, and I don't know if you have maybe a slide, so you can share it to us.
It right in the chat here.
Or in the chat, thank you very much.
So if anyone has any questions, please feel free.
Yes. There is, wouldn't a certificate be a college program?
Yes, so our certificate that Dr. Caroline mentioned, it's a certificate in human resources management. I actually did that program myself, and so many of our students combine it with their bachelor's degree. So I pursued a major in human resource management and also earned that certificate. It can also be seen as a postgraduate certificate. So for a student who already has a bachelor's degree, perhaps with a background in psychology or management, they can pursue that certificate in human resource management program.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know, ¿estudiante tiene alguna otra pregunta? Creo que sería un buen momento, ya que tenemos a Lauren o inclusive al profesor, para que las hagan.
We've
O
got
si
a,
no,
we've
yeah,
got
we got one question.
another one in the Q&A section. St. Mary's sounds great. Where can we get more info about the programs?
So I'm actually going to put a link in the chat. We have regular webinars. We call them Wednesday webinars. So typically every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time and 4 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, we have a general St. Mary's University presentation. So anyone is welcome. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. I did one yesterday afternoon and it was a lot of fun. But that's where you can get more general information about all bachelor's programs at St. Mary's University.
Thank you. We have another question. First, Carla says thank you. And then she asks, may I ask what's the difference between Bachelor of Arts and Science?
I'm assuming, Carla, you might mean what's the difference between a major in psychology in the Bachelor of Arts and Bachelor of Science?
Maybe. Let me see. She hasn't answered, but maybe that's the question. Because sometimes there are programs that has Bachelor of Arts or Bachelor of Science, so maybe she is asking what's the difference between one in each program.
Yeah, so I might ask Dr. Caroline to help me with that question in terms of the specifics about psychology. I will just quickly mention that if you are pursuing psychology as a major in the Bachelor of Arts, a lot of your electives or non-psychology courses would be in the humanities and social sciences, whereas if you pursue psychology through the Bachelor of Science, your electives would be in sciences like biology, chemistry, geology, for example, in addition to some humanities and social science courses. But I might ask the expert in psychology here to perhaps be a bit more specific there.
Luckily, I prepared for this question because we do get this question a lot. So within our department, the requirements for the courses that you take are identical for the Bachelor of Science versus Bachelor of Arts degrees. So you could have a student going through, 2 students going through our program, taking Bachelor of Science and Bachelor of Arts, and their psychology classes would be identical. The big difference is the electives that you end up taking. That said, generally what what I find is that I tend to get a few more of the Bachelor of Arts students in my classes than, say, some of my colleagues who are in sort of the more industrial organizational side or the forensic psychology side. They might tend to get a few more students in arts. So that's kind of one of the neat things about psychology. We're a very big umbrella as a discipline. So we do incorporate a lot of biology and computer science and statistics into a lot of what we do, and maybe even a little bit more so in some domains of psychology than others. So the long answer is it's all about, the short answer is it's all about the electives, but you can kind of customize your degree a little bit to match what you're interested in within the psych department.
Oh, thank you very much. And we have another question from Lavinia. She asks, well, first she thanks for the presentation and for the Dr. Patrick being here with us. And she's asking to know about scholarships for international students and if it's hard to apply.
That's a great question. So we do have automatic entrance scholarship consideration. So if you are applying directly from high school, so finishing grade 12, applying to your bachelor degree program, we will automatically assess you for scholarships when we assess you for admission. So for admissions, we're looking for a 70% average in 5 specific subjects for your program of choice. And if you have the equivalent of an 80% admission average or higher, we would automatically offer you a scholarship, and you'd find that in your offer letter. They range in annual value from 1,000 to 7,000 Canadian dollars per year, so up to 28,000 Canadian dollars over 4 years. There are more awards you can apply for, and there's more information. I'll put a link in here at smu.ca/scholarships. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. No, thank you for answering us. I don't see any more questions. So I think we can wrap up for this session. Thank you very much for being here with us. Dr. Patrick, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very interesting, not only for the students, but for us too.